11 handlers had died inside containment cell 14. The 12th had survived only because he lost his arm instead of his life. Now the cell sat at the end of Corridor 9 like a wound that refused to heal, and everyone on Station Helix 7 walked past it a little faster than necessary. Daniel Reyes did not walk fast. He stood before the reinforced glass with his hands in his pockets and watched the creature inside. It moved like liquid shadow, 6 legs carrying it in endless circles around the perimeter of its prison. Bioluminescent patterns rippled across its black hide, blue and violet warnings that pulsed with each breath. The scientists called it Specimen Row. The guards called it the Widowmaker. Daniel called it scared. He had seen that same pacing in wolves kept too long in concrete enclosures. He had seen those same warning displays in big cats pushed past their limits. The creature was not hunting. It was not planning. It was drowning in its own stress hormones, trapped in a body built for open spaces and packed bonds, locked inside for walls that offered neither. You are the new human. Daniel turned to find Overseer Quillen approaching. The Methori administrator stood nearly 2 meters tall, insectoid limbs folded precisely against a thorax covered in administrative badges. Compound eyes studied Daniel with an expression he could not read. I arrived 3 days ago, Daniel said. They assigned me to general perimeter duty. That assignment has changed. Quillen's mandibles clicked softly. You are now responsible for specimen rose care rotation. Daniel looked back at the glass. Inside, the creature had stopped pacing. It stood facing him, 6 eyes reflecting the corridor lights like tiny moons. Why me? Because every other human on this station has either requested transfer or resigned rather than accept this duty. Quillen paused. You have not requested anything. You have simply stood here for the past 40 minutes, watching. It is interesting. It is lethal. Those are not opposites. Quillen made a sound that might have been surprise. The Galactic Fauna Preservation Council wants this specimen destroyed. It has killed too many handlers. It cannot be studied, cannot be relocated, cannot be controlled. I have 30 rotations to demonstrate a reason for its continued existence, or I must authorize termination. The Methori's voice carried something almost like regret. You humans were hired because your death world reflexes allow you to survive encounters that kill other species. Perhaps you will survive long enough to prove this creature is more than a monster. Daniel considered this. Has anyone tried not restraining it during feeding? Quillen went very still. Explain. I read the incident reports. Every handler death happened during feeding or medical procedures. Every time, the creature was restrained first. Pinned down, movement restricted, forced into submission. Daniel gestured at the glass. Look at its body structure. 6 limbs, low center of gravity, eyes positioned for 300-degree awareness. This is an ambush predator from a death world. Restraining it does not make it feel safe. Restraining it makes it feel like it is about to be eaten. You suggest we allow an apex predator to move freely while handlers enter its space. I suggest we stop treating it like a prisoner and start treating it like what it is. Daniel met the Methori's compound eyes. An animal that has been traumatized every single day since its capture. Quillen said nothing for a long moment. Then, you have an unusual perspective for a security guard. I was not always a security guard. That night, Daniel sat in the station's small human quarters with his colleague Tessa Okonkwo. She was older than him, her hair streaked with gray, her eyes carrying the weight of too many deployments. You're going to get yourself killed, she said flatly. Probably not. That thing ate a felon handler 2 cycles ago. Ate him. There were pieces left. Daniel pulled up Rose's file on his tablet. The felon handler approached from the creature's blind spot while it was feeding. He triggered a defensive response. Defensive? It tore him apart. An injured wolf will tear apart anyone who corners it. That does not make the wolf evil. It makes the wolf afraid. He scrolled through the data. Roe was captured as a juvenile. Its family unit was killed during the collection mission. It has spent 12 cycles in captivity, handled only by beings who approached it with weapons and restraints. It has never known anything except threat. Tessa shook her head. You cannot fix 12 cycles of trauma in 30 rotations. No, Daniel agreed. But I can start. He returned to Corridor 9 at 0300 when the station was quiet. He dimmed the lights outside Cell 14, pulled a folding chair from a storage closet, and sat down 3 meters from the glass. He had not looked directly at Ro. He pulled out a book and began to read. Inside the cell, the creature stopped pacing. It watched him with 6 unblinking eyes, its bioluminescence shifting from warning violet to something softer, something uncertain. Daniel turned a page and waited for nothing at all. 6 nights Daniel sat outside containment cell 14. 6 nights he read his book, hummed old songs from Earth, and pretended he was alone. He never looked directly at the glass. He never spoke to the creature. He simply existed in its space, asking for nothing, threatening nothing. On the 7th night, Rose stopped pacing the moment Daniel's chair scraped against the floor. The creature settled onto its belly near the glass, 6 legs tucked beneath its massive body like a cat preparing to wait out a storm. Its eyes never left Daniel, but the bioluminescent patterns along its hide had changed. Gone were the sharp violet warnings. In their place, soft blue ripples moved like water across dark fur. Daniel turned a page and allowed himself a small smile. You have lost your mind. He looked up to find Tessa standing at the corridor entrance, arms crossed, face tight with worry. Possibly, he admitted, every night this week, sitting in the dark with that thing 3 meters away. She stepped closer, lowering her voice. The other guards think you are suicidal. Quillen thinks you are running some kind of experiment. I think you are both. Daniel closed his book. Predators watch. They assess. They learn patterns. Right now, Ro is learning that I am not a threat. Not prey. Not a handler who will pin it down and hurt it. He gestured at the glass. Look at its posture. That is not hunting behavior. That is curiosity. Tessa looked. Ro's massive head rested on its forepaws, eyes half-lidded, body relaxed in a way the station records said it had never shown before. Is watching you like you are interesting, she said slowly. I am interesting. I am the first being in 12 cycles who has sat near it without trying to control it. This is insane. This is patience. Daniel stood, folding his chair. My grandmother raised wolves in the mountains of New Mexico. She taught me that trust cannot be forced. It can only be offered and earned. Every day, you show up. Every day, you ask for nothing. Eventually, the animal decides you might be worth knowing. He walked past Tessa toward the corridor exit. Behind him, inside the cell, Ro rose to its feet and followed his movement along the glass, watching until he disappeared around the corner. The next morning, Daniel found Handler Mirren waiting for him in the mess hall. The elderly felon had gray-streaked fur and eyes that carried decades of experience with dangerous creatures. She had been assigned to Helix, 7 longer than anyone else on staff. I watched the overnight recordings, she said without greeting. From Cell 14, Daniel sat down across from her. And I have worked this station for 40 cycles. I have seen that creature tear through reinforced barriers. I have seen it kill beings twice my size. Mirren's canine features shifted into something almost like wonder. I have never seen it lie down. It was tired. No, the old felon leaned forward. It felt safe. For perhaps the first time since we captured it, that creature felt safe enough to rest in the presence of another being. Her ears flattened. How did you know? Daniel thought of his grandmother's wolves. He thought of the bear he had rehabilitated in Montana, the one that had killed 2 people before he spent 8 months teaching it that not all humans meant harm. He thought of the mountain lion that had slept across his feet during a blizzard because it had learned he was part of its world, not an enemy within it. I did not know, he said. I hope. That afternoon, Overseer Quillen summoned Daniel to the administrative level. The Methery's office was sparse and functional, designed for a species that valued efficiency over comfort. The council has reviewed your progress reports, Quillen said. They are skeptical. I have only been working with Ro for 1 week. Yes, and in that week, the creature has exhibited behavioral changes that contradict 12 cycles of documentation. Quillen's mandibles clicked rapidly. Some council members believe you have falsified the recordings. I have not. I know. The Methery pulled up a holographic display showing Ro's biometric data. Stress hormones down 30%. Sleep cycles normalizing. Aggression indicators at the lowest levels ever recorded. Quillen turned those compound eyes on Daniel. You sat in a chair and read a book. Explain how this achieved results that sedation protocols and behavioral modification programs failed to produce. Daniel looked at the data streams, the numbers that represented a creature's suffering finally beginning to ease. Because sedation and modification are control, he said. And control is what broke Ro in the first place. Every handler who entered that cell came with tools designed to dominate. Restraints, shot prods, chemical suppressants. He met Quillen's gaze. I came with a chair and a book. I came asking for nothing. And for the first time in 12 cycles, that creature met someone who did not want to take anything from it. Quillen was silent for a long moment. You have 23 rotations remaining, the Methori finally said. Use them wisely. That night, Daniel returned to Corridor 9. He set up his chair. He opened his book. And when Rose settled near the glass to watch him, Daniel began to read aloud, his voice low and steady, filling the space between them with words that meant nothing and everything at once. The creature's eyes slowly closed. Trust, Daniel thought, was not given. It was grown, one quiet night at a time. The archive files on Ro's homeworld were buried in a database that most station personnel did not know existed. Daniel found them on day 12, hidden behind security clearances that Overseer Quillen quietly unlocked for him. What he read made him want to break something. The collection mission had been a disaster from the start. The scientific team wanted live specimens of the apex predator species for study. They had tracked a family unit through dense jungle terrain for 3 days before cornering them in a ravine. The adult specimens had fought back. They had killed 2 researchers before being put down with heavy weapons fire. Ro had been a juvenile then, small enough to tranquilize, small enough to cage. The report noted that the creature had been found pressed against its mother's body, refusing to leave even as the sedatives took hold. Daniel closed the file and sat in the dark for a long time. He understood now why Ro fought so hard against restraints. He understood why the creature's stress response triggered whenever handlers approached from its blind spots, the same angles the collection team had used during the capture. Every protocol the station used to manage Ro recreated the worst moment of its life. The next morning, Daniel submitted a new care proposal to Quillen. No more restraints during feeding. No more chemical sedation for routine procedures. No more approaching from angles that triggered defensive responses. Instead, he outlined a program of systematic trust building, the same methods he had used with traumatized predators on Earth. Quillen approved it within the hour. You're giving a killer freedom of movement, Tessa said when she heard. This will end badly. Maybe. Daniel was preparing cloth strips soaked in his own scent, items he would leave near Ro's cell to help the creature grow familiar with him. But continuing the old methods will definitely end badly. Ro will either kill more handlers or be executed. I am offering a third option. What option is that? Partnership. Tessa laughed, then realized he was serious, then stopped laughing. You cannot partner with something that sees you as food. Ro does not see me as food. It sees me as strange. Daniel tied the last cloth strip into a bundle. Strange is good. Strange means I do not fit into its categories of threat or prey. Strange means it has to think about me differently. Over the following days, Daniel introduced changes slowly. He placed his scented cloths near the cell's ventilation intake. He began humming low frequencies during his nightly visits, sounds he had researched from acoustic studies of Ro's species. Pack communication among its kind operated through subsonic calls. Vibrations felt more than heard. Daniel could not replicate them perfectly, but he could approximate. Ro began responding. When Daniel hummed, the creature would settle closer to the glass. Its bioluminescent patterns shifted into rhythms that seemed almost conversational. Handler Mirren, watching through remote cameras, documented everything with growing amazement. It is trying to talk back, she told Daniel. Those light patterns are not random. Your species communicates through sound. Its species communicates through light. It is trying to find a common language. On day 15, Daniel began feeding Ro without restraints. He entered the outer airlock of the containment cell, separated from the creature by only an energy barrier, and pushed food portions through a transfer slot while Ro watched from 3 meters away. The first time, the creature did not eat until Daniel left. The second time, it approached the food while he was still present. By the fifth feeding, Ro ate while Daniel sat in the airlock, the two of them sharing space for the first time. Then came the setback that a maintenance alarm shrieked through Corridor 9 without warning, triggered by a faulty sensor 3 levels up. The sound was exactly the wrong frequency, a high-pitched wail that mimicked distress calls in Ro's species. The creature went berserk. Daniel heard the crash from the mess hall and ran. By the time he reached Cell 14, Ro had destroyed every enrichment item in its enclosure. The creature was throwing itself against the walls, bioluminescence blazing in panic patterns, 6 eyes wild with terror that had no target. Guards gathered at the corridor entrance, weapons ready. Quillen's voice came over the intercom, calm but urgent. Recommend sedation protocol. The specimen is causing structural damage. No. Daniel moved past the guards toward the glass. Everyone out of the corridor. Now. Human Reyes, this is not advisable. Out. Please. They went. Even Tessa, after a long look that said she expected to identify his body later. Daniel sat down in front of the glass. He did not speak. He did not move. He simply existed, the same way he had for 2 weeks of quiet nights, and waited for Ro to remember that he was not part of whatever nightmare the alarm had triggered. IT took 4 hours. Slowly, the creature's frenzy subsided. The violent impacts against the walls became restless pacing. The pacing became standing. The standing became settling. Heavy breaths gradually slowing, bioluminescent patterns fading from panic white to exhausted blue. Ro finally laid down facing the glass. Its eyes found Daniel through the transparent barrier, and something in its gaze seemed almost apologetic. I know, Daniel said softly. It was not your fault. He stayed until station dawn, his back against the wall, watching Ro sleep. Progress, he had learned long ago, was never a straight line. But every setback survived was proof that the bond could hold. In the morning, Handler Mirren found him still there and brought him coffee. She did not say anything. She did not need to. They both understood what the night had proven. Ro had been terrified, and had looked to Daniel for safety. That was everything. The council inspectors arrived on day 22, their shuttle docking at Station Helix 7 with the quiet precision of beings who expected to be disappointed. There were 3 of them. A Methori bureaucrat with more badges than Quillen. A Feln scientist whose fur had gone entirely silver with age. And something Daniel had never seen before, a crystalline being that moved like living glass and spoke in harmonic tones that required translation software to understand. They want a demonstration, Quillen told Daniel in his office, compound eyes dark with worry. They have reviewed your reports. They have seen the biometric improvements, but they do not believe anything has fundamentally changed. What kind of demonstration? They want you to enter the containment cell. Fully. No barriers between you and Specimen Row. Daniel had known this moment would come. He had hoped for more time, more trust built, more foundation laid. But hope did not change deadlines. Row is not ready for an audience, he said. The inspectors will bring unfamiliar scents, unfamiliar sounds, unfamiliar body language. Everything about their presence will register as threat. I made this argument. They rejected it. Quillen's mandibles clicked in what Daniel had learned to recognize as frustration. The crystalline delegate said that if the creature cannot tolerate observers, it cannot be considered reformed. The demonstration will proceed as requested, or the termination order will be issued immediately. Daniel found Tessa in the armory, checking weapon cells with mechanical precision. She did not look up when he entered. I heard, she said. They want me to enter the cell with Ro. Full contact. And you're going to do it? Yes. Tessa finally looked at him. Her eyes held something he had not seen before. Fear, yes, but also something that might have been respect. You really believe that thing will not kill you? I believe Ro has spent 12 cycles waiting for someone to see it as more than a monster. Daniel leaned against the doorframe. I believe that when given the choice between violence and connection, Most creatures will choose connection, even the dangerous ones, especially the dangerous ones. That is either profound or incredibly stupid. Probably both. The demonstration was scheduled for the following morning. Daniel spent the night in Corridor 9, sitting beside Rose's cell as he had done so many times before. But this time, he spoke directly to the creature, his voice low and honest. "Tomorrow is going to be hard," he said. "There will be strangers watching. You will smell their fear. You will hear their heartbeats racing. Everything in you will scream that danger is near." He pressed his palm against the glass. "But I will be there, and I need you to trust that I am not leading you into a trap." Ro watched him with 6 steady eyes. Its bioluminescence pulsed in slow, calm patterns, blue and green waves that Daniel had learned meant attention without anxiety. "I do not know if you understand my words," Daniel continued, "but I think you understand my intention. I think you know by now that I am not your enemy." He smiled, tired and true. "Tomorrow, we prove that to everyone else." The demonstration chamber was designed for observation. The council inspectors stood on a raised platform behind reinforced glass, looking down into a space that had been cleared of everything except Rose's containment field. Daniel entered through the main airlock, wearing nothing but his standard uniform. No weapons, no protective gear, no chemical deterrents. "You may proceed," the crystalline inspector chimed through the translation system. Daniel approached the containment field. Rose stood on the other side, body tense, eyes fixed on the observation platform above. The creature's bioluminescence flickered in uncertain patterns, neither calm nor panicked, but wary. "Alert! I know," Daniel murmured. "I see them too." He deactivated the containment field. The air between them vanished. For the first time, nothing separated Daniel from the apex predator that had killed 11 handlers. Rose stood less than 2 meters away, close enough that Daniel could feel the heat radiating from its massive body. The creature's head swung toward him. 6 eyes locked onto his face. Daniel sat down, he crossed his legs, placed his hands on his knees, and made himself small and still and unthreatening. He did not run. He did not try to assert dominance. He simply existed, the same way he had for 22 nights of quiet patience, and waited that Rose's nostrils flared. It circled him slowly, massive paws silent on the floor, 6 legs carrying it in a pattern that could have been stalking or could have been assessment. Daniel kept his breathing steady. He kept his eyes soft, not staring, not challenging. He trusted. The creature completed 3 full circles. Then Ro lay down, not beside Daniel, behind him. The creature positioned its enormous body between the seated human and the observation platform above, turning its back to Daniel and facing the strangers who watched with fear in their alien eyes, guarding him on the platform. The felon scientist made a sound of astonishment. The Methori bureaucrat's mandibles hung open. Even the crystalline being's harmonic tone shifted into something that the translator rendered as wonder. Handler Mirren's voice came through the intercom, barely above a whisper. "It has chosen him." Daniel reached back slowly, carefully, and rested his hand on Rose's flank. The creature's bioluminescence bloomed into patterns of blue and gold, colors no one had ever seen it display before. "Trust," Daniel thought, feeling the steady rhythm of Rose breathing beneath his palm. Not given, not taken, earned. 3 days after the demonstration, Station Helix 7 broke. Daniel was in the mess hall when the first explosion shook the walls. Emergency lights flooded every corridor with red. Alarms screamed through the intercom system, followed by a calm, automated voice that somehow made everything worse. Containment failure detected in sectors 4 through 9. All personnel proceed to designated safe zones. Repeat, containment failure detected. Tessa grabbed his arm. The Beast Wing. That is sectors 4 through 9. They ran. The corridors were chaos. Station personnel pushed past each other in every direction, some heading towards safe zones, others trying to reach emergency stations. Daniel and Tessa fought their way toward the containment wing against the flow of bodies fleeing the opposite direction. The closer they got, the worse it became. Power had failed in cascading waves across the sector. Blast doors had sealed randomly, trapping some corridors while leaving others wide open. And the creatures, the dozens of dangerous specimens housed in the containment wing, were loose. Daniel saw a Vorax serpent slithering through a ventilation breach above him. He saw a pack of hunting mammals from some distant world fighting over something that might have been a supply crate or might have been a body. He saw things he had no names for, shadows with too many legs and eyes that reflected light in the wrong directions. "Ro," he said, "I need to reach cell 14. Are you insane? The containment fields are down everywhere." "Exactly." He left Tessa behind and ran. Corridor 9 was dark when Daniel reached it, emergency power barely enough to light his path. Cell 14 stood at the end, its reinforced glass intact, but its containment field completely dead. The door hung open. Rose stood in the corridor. The creature had not fled. It had not hunted. It waited outside its cell like a dog waiting for its owner to come home, 6 eyes searching the shadows until they found Daniel emerging from the darkness. Ro made a sound. Low, resonant, subsonic. A call that vibrated through Daniel's chest and settled somewhere in his bones. He had heard variations of it during their weeks together, but never this clearly, never this loud, an invitation. Daniel walked forward until he stood beside the creature. Ro's head swung toward him, bioluminescence pulsing in patterns he now recognized as greeting. The massive predator pressed its shoulder against his side, a gesture of contact that would have been deadly from a wild specimen. From Ro, it felt like trust. "I know," Daniel said. "Something is very wrong." His communicator crackled. Quillen's voice strained with urgency. "Human Reyes, respond. I am here. Corridor 9. With Ro." A pause. "The creature is loose. The creature is with me. What is the situation?" Another pause, longer this time. When Quillen spoke again, something had changed in the Methery's voice. Something that sounded almost like hope. 12 personnel are trapped in Sector 9 Junction. Security teams cannot reach them. The corridors are overrun with escaped specimens. The words came faster now. "We have no one in position. Everyone who tries gets turned back by the predators. We are going to lose those people." Daniel looked at Ro. The creature looked back at him. "I can get to them," Daniel said slowly. "But not alone." The silence on the communicator stretched. Daniel could almost hear Quillen wrestling with the impossibility of what he was suggesting. "You want to take Specimen Ro into an active containment breach. I want to take my partner into a rescue operation. If the creature attacks the trapped personnel, it will not." "How can you possibly?" "Because Ro chose me." Daniel's voice was steady, certain in a way that surprised even himself. "It positioned itself between me and the council inspectors. It has spent 3 days following me around the station like a shadow. It is not a wild animal anymore, Quillen. It is something new." He rested his hand on Ro's flank. "Trust me. Trust us." The communicator was silent for a very long time. "Sector 9 Junction," Quillen finally said. "Follow the emergency lighting. The personnel are barricaded in a storage unit. You have 30 minutes before we lose containment entirely." Daniel looked at Ro. "Ready." The creature's bioluminescence shifted to deep gold, the color of focus, of purpose. It moved forward into the darkness, and Daniel moved with it, neither leading nor following. Partners navigating a hunt where the goal was not to kill. The goal was to protect. They moved through the damaged corridors together. Ro's senses reached where Daniel's could not, ears swiveling toward sounds he could not hear, nostrils parsing scents that told stories he could not read. When threats appeared in their path, the creature did not attack. It displayed bioluminescence blazing, body language broadcasting dominance in ways that other predators understood instinctively. Lesser creatures fled before them. Ro was apex, and everything in the station's broken wing knew it. Daniel had never felt so safe in a disaster zone. They were halfway to Sector 9 when they encountered the first real obstacle. 3 hunting mammals blocked the corridor ahead, the same pack Daniel had seen earlier. They were feeding on something, and they did not want to give up their territory. Ro stepped forward. What followed was not a fight. It was a conversation conducted in posture and sound and light, ancient communication between predators establishing hierarchy. Ro's display was overwhelming, 6 legs planted wide, bioluminescence, screaming warnings in colors that Daniel had never seen before. The hunting pack broke and ran. Daniel let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. Good job. Ro made a sound that might have been acknowledgement. They pressed on toward the trapped personnel, and Daniel understood that everything was about to change. The personnel in Sector 9 had barricaded themselves inside a storage unit with nothing but emergency supplies and fading hope. They were 8 scientists, 3 maintenance workers, and 1 Methori administrator whose compound eyes had gone dull with resigned fear. Outside their shelter, 3 escaped predators circled like sharks waiting for blood. Then the corridor lights flickered, and something massive emerged from the shadows. The Methori administrator later said that she screamed. She was not ashamed of this. She had spent 15 cycles working with dangerous specimens, and she had never seen anything as terrifying as the apex predator that materialized from the darkness, bioluminescence blazing in patterns of gold and crimson. Then she saw the human walking beside it. Daniel Reyes moved through the junction like he belonged there, one hand resting casually on the creature's flank, his body language radiating calm that seemed almost supernatural given the circumstances. He looked at the barricade, then at the circling predators, then at Ro. "Clear them," he said quietly. Ro did not attack. It did not need to. The creature simply walked toward the 3 predators with the absolute confidence of an apex species claiming territory. Its display was overwhelming, subsonic calls rumbling through the floor, bioluminescence screaming warnings that transcended language. The circling predators broke and fled. Daniel approached the barricade. "Everyone out. Stay behind me and move quickly. Do not run. Do not make sudden movements, and do not show fear. Ro will protect us, but you need to trust the process." The Methori administrator found her voice. "That creature killed 11 handlers. That creature is currently the only reason you are still alive." Daniel's tone was patient but firm. "We could discuss its history after we reach safety. Right now, we move." They moved. The journey back through the compromised sectors was tense but uneventful. Ro led the way, its presence parting the chaos like a stone parting water. Escaped specimens fled before them. Blocked corridors opened as threats withdrew. The 12 rescued personnel walked in a cluster behind Daniel, eyes fixed on the massive predator that had somehow become their guardian. They reached the secure zone in 18 minutes. Not one additional casualty. When the blast door sealed behind them and the rescued personnel collapsed into the arms of waiting medical teams, Daniel finally allowed himself to breathe. Rose settled beside him, pressing its flank against his leg, bioluminescence fading to calm blue. Tessa found him there an hour later, still sitting against the wall with a creature that had killed 11 beings curled around him like a loyal dog. "The council inspectors watched the whole thing through security feeds," she said. The crystalline one made sounds that the translator could not process. "I think it might have been crying." Daniel laughed, tired and genuine. "Crystals can cry." Apparently, they can when they watch a human walk through a containment breach with an apex predator as backup. Tessa sat down beside him, keeping a respectful distance from Ro. "You did something impossible today." "Not impossible, just different." The emergency session of the Galactic Fauna Preservation Council convened 3 days later, after the station had been secured and the escaped specimens recaptured. Daniel attended at Quillen's request, standing before delegates from 18 species while footage of his rescue operation played on screens around the chamber. Handler Mirren spoke first. The old felon's voice carried the weight of her 40 cycles of experience. "I have worked with dangerous creatures my entire adult life," she said. "I have watched handlers approach their duties with fear, with dominance, with clinical detachment. I have never seen what this human has done." She gestured at the screen, where Daniel and Ro moved through darkness together. He did not conquer that creature. He did not break it. He found the being beneath the beast and offered something none of us thought to offer. Partnership. The crystalline delegates harmonics translated as wonder. "You suggest this approach could be replicated?" "I suggest," Mirren said, "that humans understand something about connection that the rest of us have forgotten. They come from a death world. They evolved alongside predators that should have destroyed them. Instead of eliminating those predators, they befriended them. They turned wolves into companions. They made alliances with creatures that could kill them with a single blow. She looked at Daniel. This is not an anomaly. This is what humans do. The council approved funding for a pilot program that same day. Human-fauna integration teams would be established across preservation facilities throughout the sector. Volunteers would work with specimens previously deemed unmanageable, using methods developed from Daniel's approach. Daniel was offered the position of lead handler. His first official recommendation was to redesign containment cells station-wide, replacing cages with habitats, replacing fear with trust point. 1 month later, Rose's cell was gone. In its place stood an open habitat with climbing structures, environmental enrichment, and a small human quarters built into one corner. Daniel had moved in on the first day. Rose had not objected. Tessa visited on a quiet evening, finding Daniel reading in a chair while Rose dozed nearby, massive head resting near his knee. The creature's bioluminescence pulsed in slow, peaceful rhythms, blues and greens that spoke of contentment. The other humans on the integration teams keep asking how you knew it would work, Tessa said. How you knew Rose would trust you. Daniel set down his book. He reached out and ran his hand along Rose's flank, feeling the rumble of contentment beneath armored hide. I did not make it trust me, he said. I gave it reasons to, and I trusted it back. Rose's eyes opened, 6 points of reflected light in the dim habitat. The creature made a low sound, subsonic and warm, and shifted closer until its head rested against Daniel's leg. Outside the habitat, across the galaxy, the story spread. Humans, those strange creatures from a death world, did not break the untamable. They did not conquer the savage. They sat in the dark with monsters and found the frightened animals within, and they offered them something better than captivity. They offered them family.